Welcome to The Explainer. Every week, tons of money gets spent at the box office, but the real story, it's almost never just about who's number one. So today, we're going to dig into the mid-January numbers and uncover the hidden strategies, the wild stats, and the surprising upsets that most headlines just fly right over. So let's dive right in. A box office chart might look like a simple list, but really, it's a snapshot of a fierce battle. It's way more than just ticket sales. It's about studio strategy, audience habits, and believe it or not, some seriously unexpected plot twists that happen completely off-screen. We're going to break down what these numbers are actually telling us. Okay, first things first, let's set the scene. To really get a handle on the shifts and surprises from this past weekend, we have to see what the box office landscape looked like right before all the new movies dropped. This is our starting point. As you can see, heading into the weekend, the sci-fi blockbuster Avatar: Fire and Ash was just completely dominating. In its fourth week, it was still pulling in nearly $29 million. It really looked like nothing could touch it. All right, now let's jump ahead to the weekend of January 16th. A brand new challenger steps into the ring, and this is where things at the top of the chart start to get really interesting. And here we go, our first twist. While Avatar did manage to hang on to that top spot with 14.5 million, look who's breathing right down its neck. The new horror sequel, 28 years later, The Bone Temple, just storms onto the scene with a huge $12.5 million debut. All of a sudden, we've got a real fight on our hands. This slide really shows you the strategy behind the fight. So yeah, Avatar made more money overall, and it had a better per-theater average. That's how much cash each individual theater raked in. But, and this is a big but, check out the theater count. The studio for 28 years later shoved it into over 200 more theaters. That's a classic wide-release strategy, just trying to grab as many eyeballs as possible right out of the gate. And, despite the new competition, you just can't argue with this number. In 5 weeks, Avatar has piled up a staggering $364 million just domestically. That kind of momentum makes it a true box office juggernaut. That's the power of a massive franchise for you. But here's the thing. The battle for number one is only part of the story. If you look a little further down the list, you find some even more dramatic stuff going on. Films that are quietly having absolutely explosive weekends. And this gets us to a really crucial point. Sometimes the biggest success stories aren't about the total dollars earned, but about the insane growth. It's about a film finding its audience and just building incredible momentum out of nowhere. Would you just look at these numbers? While all eyes were on the top two, you've got films like The Testament of Anne Lee and Dead Man's Wire seeing their box office earnings skyrocket by almost 700%. These are not just little bumps. They are calculated, strategic launches that can completely redefine what success looks like for a film. So, you might be wondering, how does a movie jump 700% in a single weekend? Well, it's not luck, it's a very carefully planned playbook. A film opens small, in just a handful of theaters, builds up amazing reviews and word-of-mouth buzz, and then, bam, the distributor expands it nationwide to cash in on all that hype. And here is that strategy in action. A perfect example. Dead Man's Wire went from playing in just 14 theaters to over 1,000 in 1 week. That massive jump in distribution is exactly what caused that 585% surge in ticket sales. It completely transformed its box office story, pretty much overnight. But wait, the story doesn't stop on Sunday night. See, the kind of audience that goes to the movies changes during the week, and that can lead to some really surprising shakeups in the daily rankings. So, what happens on a weekday? Let's take a peek at the chart for Monday, January 19th, because a completely new leader is about to pop up. All right, take a look at this. Avatar, our big weekend champion, it's not number one anymore. A totally different film has swooped in and taken the daily crown. That's right, Zootopia 2. The family-friendly sequel, which was sitting comfortably at number 3 over the weekend, just leapfrogged both of the blockbusters to become the number 1 movie in America on a Monday. So how in the world did this happen? Well, this slide breaks it all down. While the big action and horror movies saw their audiences drop off on a weekday, which is pretty normal, Zootopia 2's audience actually grew by almost 8%. This points to a whole different demographic, right? Families with kids who were probably off from school for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, all flocking to the theaters. So, after digging through the weekend charts, the indie film surges, and the weekday upsets, what does this all really tell us about the box office?
While ultimately, what we've seen is that there's no one-size-fits-all definition for box office success. It can be the long-term, sustained dominance of a blockbuster, like Avatar. It can be the strategic, explosive growth of a smaller film. Or it can be the ability of a family movie to capture a very specific daily audience and become, even for just a day, the most watched film in the entire country. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Do we put way too much emphasis on a film's opening weekend? These numbers show that the real story of a film's journey often unfolds long after all that initial hype dies down. The box office scoreboard has so much to tell us if we just take a moment to look beyond whoever's in first place.